everybody, to the fourth edition of Metaphysical Meltdown, and I am so lucky today to have my friend Ted Mahr joining us today. I am turning the tables on you, my friend, and I am interviewing him for a change. Now, you guys know Ted from KKNW. He's been on there for years with his radio show called Out of This World. And I'm thankful for many reasons for having him on today. He is going to talk about his life, which is really, really interesting. Also, the Galactic Wisdom Conference, which is coming on up, and some stuff that he's got on his mind. And really, we're just going to spend time with him today. So there's a few things I'd like to say. It'll come to me as we speak today. So happy Sunday, everybody, and here we go. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's so sweet of you to have me on your show. You're always a wonderful host and guest, and I've had you on my show before. You've got a golden heart, and you really truly want to help humanity, like I do.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah. You do. And I guess that's why I asked you to come on here, because I don't know how much your listeners know, because I listen to you when your guests strike my fancy, and then I listen to you, of course, when I'm on there. There's always really interesting stuff you've got going on, but I've not really heard you talk except for in your book. Tell me about your book, and then tell me about what you do right now. What do you do right now? And then I want to know also, how did that whole thing happen? How did you find out you are who you are? And this is his book, everybody, Messages from the Masters. It's awesome. I read it in about 2 days. It's so interesting.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. My book's available on Amazon, and you can also send me an email. It's okay to give my email out of this world 1150@gmail.com. I come from a psychic family. My foster mother was a master psychic. She used to work for the Seattle area police departments on missing and lost children, and that was tough work. They would come to her when they couldn't find a child that was missing, and they would give her a piece of clothing or a picture, and she would know instantaneously within a few seconds of what happened, often what happened to the child. And it was tough work because many times the child would be, of course, murdered, assaulted, but she would help them out. And she taught me how to talk to the other side and started me on my spiritual journey. I've been in touch with the other side for about 25 years now, over 25 years, and as a result of that, I've had thousands of life reviews where I review my past actions during the day, and that's helped me spiritually advance. I've advanced about between 480, almost 500 spiritual lifetimes, or approximately 4,000 years. It would have taken me normal growth on this planet to get to this point now. Mm-hmm. I started my radio show back in November of 2013, and talking to the other side is normal for me. And for several years, I wondered what would Professor Albert Einstein think of what's going on today? What kind of advice would he have? And back in February of 2015, I was working on my show for the day, and I was walking out of this library where I was working, and I was walking through this beautiful trees, and it was late in the late in the afternoon. The sun was coming through, and I heard this voice in my head saying, "I heard you want to talk to me." And I looked around, and sometimes spirits will do that. You can hear them call our audience, and you can hear them. And I heard them, and heard him, and he said, and I said, "Who's this?" And he said, "This is Albert Einstein." And so I was a little taken aback that point, and so I need to sit down. So we sat down, and we talked for the next 3.5 hours, and then he said, "Would you like to meet my friends?" And I said, "Your friends are my friends." And so he introduced me to Leonardo da Vinci. We had a long talk about how he was able to bring in. He actually did a lot of Mr. Da Vinci. Did a lot of astral traveling. He went way into the future to bring back images of submarines, flying machines, all kinds of things, which he drew. He's a very talented artist back in 15th, 16th century Italy. And then after that, I was introduced to Robert F. Kennedy, who told me all about his assassination, who truly was behind it. And then, of course, I said, "I'd love to meet your brother, John F. Kennedy." Mm-hmm. And he was right there. And I've been in touch with all of President Kennedy, Jack Kennedy, let's call him Jack, since that time, as well as Mahatma Gandhi, Benjamin Franklin, Mother Teresa on occasion, President Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower. I talked to him extensively. The Galactic Alliance, of course, which is an alliance of benevolent extraterrestrial beings. They are an alliance of 450 million planets in this 1/3 part of the Milky Way galaxy. They are between 50 and 100,000 years ahead of us technologically, and up to 50,000 years ahead of us spiritually. But it's been an amazing journey. But one of the things Nostradamus said was that many of his messages, that the timelines had changed, and the messages he had given earlier during the last century were no longer valid, because we were not headed toward a World War III or Armageddon. We were headed toward a beautiful new age, which ended up in my book, Messages from the Masters. It talks about different timelines. There's a timeline in there from Jack Kennedy about what would have happened if he had lived. And he said if we had lived, we'd be living somewhere between 300 and 400 years right now. We would have no poverty, because there would be free energy. Money would still be used, but it would be completely de-emphasized. It wouldn't be as important as it is now, as some people think it is anyway. We wouldn't have the wars and conflicts we have now. We would have shifted into the fifth dimension by now, which means that most people would be able to communicate telepathically. They would not. Language would become a secondary way of communication. He has not stopped. He has been our president on the other side ever since he passed over to the other side back on November 22nd, 1963. And he told me about a year and a half ago he was working on an important peace initiative with the United States. And he didn't tell me too many details, but he told me to keep it quiet until after it was announced. And that was announced about a year ago, of course, with the United States and North Korea. And he said he'd gone into the subconscious minds of both Kim Jong-un and President Trump and reached common ground with both, because neither man wanted to destroy the world in a silly nuclear war, to destroy all of God's creation. And he tells me he's working on now on other peace agreements elsewhere in the world that he prefers to keep quiet. But he is in contact with other world leaders. They do know him, and he does contact them on a regular basis. That's all I can say. But he is working behind the scenes, and he's still our president. And we're getting a lot of angelic help right now. One of the main things happening is that for people interested in third dimensional physics, there's something called the Schumann resonance, which is the vibrations of this planet. And for tens of thousands of years, the Schumann resonance was 7.8 hertz. And then in September of 2016, it doubled to 13.8 hertz almost. And since that time, wow, it has gone up. I heard recently it went up to 1,000 hertz in certain areas of the planet, especially Sedona. Gone way, way up. Now you have to remember that the hertz of love, the vibration of love is 528 hertz. And so we've gone beyond that now. And as the vibrations go higher and higher, we are moving closer and closer to the fourth, and then we'll slip into the fifth dimension. And people ask me, well, what's the fifth dimension like? It's like a dream state. There's the same physicality that we have here in the third dimension, but when you look at each other and look at another person, you'll be able to communicate telepathically, just like that. Colors will be much more vibrant. If you've ever been up into the Rocky Mountains or into Tibet or Ladakh in northern India, about 9,500 feet, the colors, the sky is bluer. The greens of the grasses and trees are greener. The reds of flowers like roses are redder. It's hard, but they have more vibration. They're vibrating at a higher rate, so everything is much, much higher. I've been to Shasta many times, and also to the city of Telos underneath Mount Shasta many times. And I go there every twice a year. Last time I was there, when I went there, when you go in, you see an example of what a fifth dimensional civilization is like. The people beneath Mount Shasta are remnants of a Lemurian civilization that escaped destruction by the Atlanteans 12,500 years ago, and they've been there since. And they're very peaceful, loving, benevolent, kind people. And I had a very special experience there last September of 2018, when they healed my right eye. You see, for the last 40 plus years since college, I've had blurry 20/50 farsighted vision in my right eye, so that when I looked at far objects, it was just blurry. But they asked me if I wanted a healing for my eyes when I was there last September. They said, you can now see spiritually crystal clear. Would you like to see physically crystal clear? And I said yes, and Adama healed my eyesight. I'll never forget the time when I woke up after sleeping in this tent overnight at Mount Shasta, and all the trees, everything was crystal clear, and it's been that way ever since. So
the train's got a park. You are so awesome. And the deal is you've said so much now, we got to tease it apart.
All right.
Because not everybody who watches this knows what you're talking about.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So
all
let's
right.
start at the beginning. You
All
said
right.
so many awesome things. I've spoken to some of your friends on the other side too. Some of them are my friends too. What we want to talk about here is many of the people who do the work we do believe we are in corridors between dimensions right now. Okay? So if you were to hazard a guess, where do you think most of humanity is right now?
The higher part of the third dimension. Most. But there's about 15 to 20% which are in probably fifth dimension.
Okay, good. This is what I think too.
Yeah.
Because I know I've hit fifth,
yeah,
but can fall firmly into 3. I did it yesterday when somebody really big time was really awful to me. And just like lessons, those stinky people come around every once in a while, and you can't see them coming.
Yeah.
And us people feel it right here.
Yeah.
And you know you're going to get a trigger, and you fall back into a different dimension. So our goal, of course, is to rise up in this energy.
Yeah.
So the hurts that you're talking about, the Schumann resonant, it hurts all right. People are feeling it in the heart and in the head. So what do you think? What is causing the whiteout on the Schumann resonance and on the different scales? I mean, is energy I just kind of want to know what you know about the energy that's coming in.
The energy itself is coming from the central sun of this galaxy, and it's hitting this planet. When this whole thing about global warming is, frankly, sometimes I don't know what to believe, frankly. But I do know that many of these higher vibrations, much of the vibrations are coming from our central sun. And when they spray chemtrails in our atmosphere, that's not an attempt. That's not an attempt to do anything good for the planet. That's an attempt to block out these rays, which are raising our vibrations. Chemtrails themselves are being sprayed, many of them by the reptilians, in an attempt to terraform the planet to make it more friendly to them and less friendly to humans. But that's a whole another story.
So let me ask that for a minute here. So I know people who have done work. Many of us do work on Earth and off planet, and I believe that a lot of that really negative ET activity is pretty much gone.
Pretty much, not completely.
Okay.
Maybe about 85%.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
85%. Much of it's gone. Much of it's gone.
So what's still here going on? If you had to worry about something going on the Earth, what would you think about? I don't like to worry. I feel like it's a waste of creativity.
Energy, yeah.
But if somebody is going to be aware of still a little bit of somebody of different vibration, what do we need to just be aware and just notice? Because we're just observing.
Always,
what we are.
if you run into someone negative, always take the high road, which is difficult, but it's better to do that because then you don't have any karmic consequences. If you lower yourself down to their level, you could generate your own karmic consequences. So always try to take the high road with negative entities. They are on their way out. We will not be here much longer, and they know it. The Earth itself is splitting into two, at least two. One is the new Earth, which is the fifth dimensional Earth, which many light workers will be going to. And then there's another negative Earth in a lower part of the third dimension, Earth's sister planet, which is on the other side of the solar system in the same orbital path as this planet, where these negative entities will be going. And some are already there. George Bush Sr. is there now, as well as John McCain. I wish them well. They will be there for one Mayan Cocoon cycle, which is 25,800 years, before they have a chance to ascend. It's theoretically possible for them to ascend earlier if they make the right choices, and I wish them well.
Okay, so two earths. Let's talk about that for a minute, because I find every day that the more I squish into this little human brain, the less I know. And I kind of like being in that arena now, because I just am an open vessel for spirit to just plop anything I need to know in for that day. But I hear a lot of stuff. I listen to a lot of channels. And I believe that everybody's hearing a version of something that needs to be shifted or filtered down through their own heart and hopefully put out here on the planet in the best, most high. Not everything is, as we know. Correct?
That's true.
Correct.
That's
okay.
True.
So
That's
the way
true.
I look at it is basically I know nothing today, probably less than I did yesterday. But let's talk about the double earth thing. I remember the day that I woke up and understood that the Holy Ones weren't taking me anywhere. I'm going to be right here. It was a sad day because I kept hoping somebody was going to come and get me. But, ultimately, just like everybody else, probably going to fall over and pass away here on Earth. So this double earth thing is that as an after death thing that certain folks are going to go to, correct? Is that what I understand? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's a double thing. Now, for those of you interested in meeting both Mary and myself in person, where I have what I call the Galactic Wisdom Conference, which is April 12th, 13th, and 14th, 2019, here in Olympia, Washington. The address is at 9101 Stillicum Road, Southeast in Olympia. The website is www.galacticwisdomconference.com. The first day, Friday, April 12th, is free. And if you don't have any money, please come. The rest of the conference is just $125, and you'll meet some world-famous psychics, healers, and fantastic people, including both myself and Mary, who has a heart of gold, and she's genuinely interested in helping humanity. I also have, this is an old flyer from last year, but the dates are about the same. I go to Shasta every year, twice a year, in early July, early September. If you're interested in that, please send me an email to outofthisworld1150@gmail.com.
But I have to tell everybody, it's a funny story. So on some of these on social media and elsewhere, I am not on the picture, and he tells me it's Mercury retrograde, and it's just a little picture of a sun. So I'm just wondering, you don't see me like going to one of those worlds anytime soon.
No.
Okay.
No, and actually the hidden meaning of that is that you are a very bright, beautiful light for humanity.
Of course.
So you are so bright that it overshadowed your picture, and so you
I just want to make sure I'm speaking. I have no earthly idea of what the heck I'm going to say, but a couple days ahead, the Holy Ones dump it in my brain, and then I give whatever lesson. I just want to tell you, last year at this conference, a lot of amazing things happened to me. I met one of my guides. I saw many, many galactic beings in the building. I was kind of ready for that, though, because some of my friends that were there told me that would happen. They said there's beings everywhere, all around, lots of ships and stuff.
Yeah.
And I definitely got one of my guides through there, the lovely Nyone, that if you guys know me, know who Nyone is. And she's a beautiful guide. And so I'm really excited. I have no idea really what's going to happen. But what's so cool about it is all of us vendor and reader types are around the outside of the room, and in the very middle is lots of places to sit. It's very comfortable. And then there are people who come up and speak in life, and then there's lots of folks that are on camera that speak on Skype. So it's just a whole entire few days of a lot of exciting information. There are these are different folks from last year. Some of them came back. I know a couple people came back, right? But some of these folks are different. So if you came last year, it'll be a whole different program. Also some new vendors, correct?
New vendors, and we're having, it's not listed on the conference, on the flyer, but I'm having what they call themselves the UFO sisters, Shirlene and Erlene Wallace from Texas, coming in. They regularly get on benevolent ET craft. I'm surprised, they said they're flying American Airlines from Texas to Seattle, but I'm surprised they're not not beamed here by their friends.
Yeah.
Because they do go on board these craft very, very many times. As well as Tony Rodriguez, who's been with the Secret Space Program, will be there. Simon Parks will be giving a presentation as well. He's a famous ET contact from the United Kingdom. Manuel Aiter is a famous French Hollywood film director who's there and who does spiritual films. He'll be there. Michiko Hayashi, who's the director of the Emoto Peace Project, will be there as well. And she does beautiful work for Dr. Masaru Emoto. Jerry Pollack, who's a scientist, who's one of the world's most famous scientists, will be there as well from the University of Washington. Dr. Pollack has discovered what he calls the fourth phase of water. You have liquid water, liquid, solid, and gaseous water like clouds.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a fourth phase of water that he says has memory. I had a incredible guest on my show a couple of years ago named Matthias Di Stefano, who who has memories of living in Atlantis 15,000 years ago, and he said that the memory of water is key because in Atlantean times they used water as memory device for water-based H2O 10 computers, because there were many layers of hydrogen molecules, and those were used to store information. He said the Atlantic Ocean is like a library with many books spread around it, and if you took a glass, scientists in the future eventually will be able to take a glass of the water, for example, out of the Atlantic and get the records of Atlantis, or take a glass of water out of the Mediterranean around Egypt or Alexandria and to decipher the ancient knowledge from the Library of Alexandria in the future. So water is a very interesting topic. I know that Dr. Moto said that God is water and water is God, so that we all have water within us. I know Michiko will be coming on your show here in a couple of weeks to talk about that, but it's a really interesting conference, and Mary and I will both be there. And if you'd like more information, please see the website at www.galacticwisdomconference.com. You know, Mary, one thing I like about you, you've got a heart of gold, and you always try to help people as much as possible.
Well, what else is there really? I mean, that's why we're here, right? And
absolutely.
I always tell people, if you feel down or depressed, please try to go out and help somebody, because no matter what's going on with us, there's somebody that's worse off, I always know. Right. And we always feel so much better if we help people, and that's everybody's goal. I know that's got anything to do with this conference. But so here's the deal. Let's go back to what I was hoping to talk about you. Mm-hmm. So before you were a radio show host, what did you do?
I was an attorney for many years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's a long story. I got tired of all the negativity. There were clients that wanted me to do unethical things, and it tore at me. And it got to the point where no matter how much money they paid me, it wasn't enough. And it's a long story, everything that happened, but I don't practice law now, and I'm glad I don't, actually. Mm-hmm. I would have never gone on this spiritual path if all the things had happened.
And it's interesting, when you tell me this now, I know several people who were attorneys before they were spiritual people.
Right.
So there is a God.
Right. Recovering lawyers.
So what do you think about this money thing? You know, I hear stories all the time about how money's changing and people are going to go to Bitcoins. I don't get a lot of energy around Bitcoins. What do you think about them?
Frankly, I don't know what to think of it. I know that, you look at our U.S. dollar-based system, which is the so-called Federal Reserve note, which is not federal, it's not reserve, it's actually run by 13 private banks. And in violation of Article 7 of the U.S. Constitution, they issue United States currency, which Article 7 of the U.S. Constitution says that only the U.S. Treasury can issue U.S. currency. So what's wrong with this picture, basically? I think it was the Rothschilds, Baron von Rothschild, who once said, give me control of a nation's currency, and I don't care what the government is, because we can control everything then. And that's basically what they've done for the past, since 1913. I know that from what my galactic friends tell me, outside of planet Earth, in all benevolent human civilizations, money is not used the way it is here. Mm-hmm. People's needs are simply provided by society in general, and they don't use money. They just don't. I know it's difficult for people to think of how a society would work without money, but believe me, we are headed toward that. We are headed toward a golden age, actually. I
think so too, and I think there are versions of Bitcoin that might be okay. But when I look at the, I guess prior to like a year ago, I haven't looked for a year. So perhaps now between a year ago and now, maybe something has changed. So I guess I'll put that out there, because who knows? People may think they're great, and I might not know something, because as we know, I don't know anything. Okay. So I think it's interesting about money, though, is I do believe we're going to be set up in more of a society of trading with others and having things provided.
Absolutely.
How many years? You got any idea? Like how many decades or lifetimes how long is it going to take? Got any idea? As guides always say, they always say soon.
Okay.
Right.
This is a planet of free will, and things can change in a New York minute depending upon your free will. But on the other side, give you some perspective, when Dolores Cannon contacted Nostradamus back in the late 1980s to help interpret his quatrains. And at that point, she wrote a series of books called Conversations with Nostradamus. It's still published. It's interesting. But the book itself said that Nostradamus said that we would be shifted into the fifth dimension by 2038. Then, right around 6 years ago, I was given the message that it was going to happen by 2028. So we moved up by 10 years. And then since that time, Simon Parkes, my friend in England, has said that we would shift by 2024, 2025. I've gotten information recently, it could be as early as 2023 to 2024. If it's 2023, that's only 4 years off from here. So it's not, and it's because of all of our cumulative choices making a better choice for the future. In those in the books that Dolores Cannon channeled from Nostradamus, Nostradamus talked about, the books were called Conversations with Nostradamus. In those books, Nostradamus talked about a third world war in Armageddon, starting in the Bosnia-Herzegovina area, where World War I started. Under the old timeline, by 2005, many American cities would have been destroyed by nuclear war. However, we're still here. Seattle's still here. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, they're all still here. Cities around the world, we're still here, and we haven't gotten into that old timeline of nuclear war. And Nostradamus has said now that we are shifted into a beautiful new timeline where the Earth is ascending and there will be no nuclear war. That doesn't mean that we don't have challenges, but it just means we're on a really good path, because all of you listening today, Mary, myself, and everyone who works hard have worked together to make this planet a better place.
And really now we understand that if we want to make a change on the Earth, that we have to become the most beautiful person, the most ascended, the most freest person that we personally can. Because if we really work on ourselves and do everything we possibly can to feel better, that we will affect those around us, and so on and so on. So I have people come to me all the time that say, what do I do to affect the world? And I have to say, you have to adjust yourself all the time. The most rigorous self-examination, actually. Really, really look at, why do we feel the way we do? Do we still have anger? Do we still have fear? Which I hope you guys are really working on. Anger and fear; those are two hard things. And negativity, thinking negatively, and all of those things can be completely helped in energy work.
Right, absolutely.
Energy work for sure. So, can you tell me a little bit? You touched on it when you were really talking in the beginning about a whole lot of stuff. I know that you also do private readings too.
Sure.
And you are a psychic medium. Do you do healing? I don't know that about you.
I do healings. Yeah, I do healings too.
What kind of healings do you do?
I teach people how to heal themselves. And then I can also bring in a Dhamma when necessary. When he says when the conditions are right, the person has to be open to it. They have to be of high enough vibration. They have to, if there's a karmic reason for the particular illness or problem, that has to be completed. I mean, there's a lot of prerequisites, but I can ask Adama also for healing for people as well.
So he's the main being that you work with, the guide that you work with?
One of them, and the Galactics too.
And the Galactics.
The Galactics too. Okay. But you see, we all have the spark of the Supreme Being of the Creator within us. And if you can tie into that, you can literally heal yourself, if you know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing.
So I met Adama, what was it, summer before last, I think, and he gave me a particular meditation that I still use, and so I love meeting him. He's an ascended master, for those that don't know, and he's not with me anymore. At one point, I was told by someone that I work with, who is an awesome teacher and healer, that it's time to ask if some of my guidance needs to ascend, or would want to ascend. It's time to ascend, and they did. So I have a whole new group of folks, and that's a new, awesome perspective. I love that. What I want to ask you, though, is not everybody knows about Mount Shasta and Telos and all of that. They don't really know about the under. So could you talk about that?
Sure. I'll give you a little history of background. 12,500 years ago, the Atlanteans tried to control the planet, and they tried to do it through the misuse of crystalline and nuclear technology. So they blew up parts of the planet. One of the places they blew up was Lemuria, and part of Lemuria drifted off to the west coast of the United States, what is now the United States, and Canada, and from the area from Mount Shasta north to Vancouver Island is a former Lemurian landmass and is full of Lemurian energy. That's why a lot of psychics and spiritual people do end up here, in this area. It's funny, if you drive down to Mount Shasta, it's a beautiful place, but if you go south, maybe 100 miles, the spiritual energy drops off completely.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't have it there.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, the population of Lemuria was well over, it was something like 1.3 million, 1.5 million out in the Pacific Ocean, of which I believe Maui was the capital, the base. And if you go to the top of Maui, there's actually steps still from that time period there. But at any rate, they escaped. Only about 25,000 people escaped from Lemuria to a cavern underneath Mount Shasta, but they escaped. They brought all of their technology intact, and they've lived there peacefully ever since. They have left us here on the surface more or less alone during that time, but as Fukushima showed, we're all on one planet together, and we have to learn to cooperate and get along and help each other, because the people of the Hollow Earth get their air supply from our atmosphere, and they get it from two holes, one hole in the top, North Pole, and one hole at the bottom at the South Pole. So that was a lesson to them as well, that they have to come to the surface now. We have to work together, or else we're going to destroy each other. They are a fifth and sixth dimensional civilization, and they communicate telepathic. There's a city called Telos, which numbers about 100,000 more or less people. I've been there. It's like they have an artificial sun. The sunlight is golden, and there's no shadows. All the colors are very vibrant. The people there are a little stockier than we are. Mm-hmm. The guys have long beards. They all wear long flowing robes, and it's like they're built on on these steep hillsides. You look like you're looking at a Swiss village. Everything's white. Buildings are white. They wear white. Streets are white. But they're very benevolent. They're kind. And the thing I like about Mount Shasta is I take people twice a year to the entrances to these to Telos and the Hollow Earth, and they always come up and visit with us. Sometimes people go in physically, as they did when I first went there in September 2016. Other times, most people go in astrally through the dream state. But it's a beautiful experience, and they're here to help us, and they are helping us now.
So Lemuria, that's definitely where I'm from.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
definitely not Atlantean. I don't resonate with that.
Right.
But I would like to astrally visit with those folks.
Okay.
So maybe you can hook me up with somebody that you know. I've never tried it. And I also want to go with you to Mount Shasta this year. Okay. Not much of a camper. I'm not much of one.
Okay.
But I trust that you're going to make this be an awesome experience.
Yeah.
And that no snakes are going to bite me.
There's no snakes, don't worry. Okay. We're completely protected. You don't need to worry about a thing.
Okay, well, I don't like snakes. Yeah. I mean, no offense to the snake realm and the people, but I can't do movie slither kind of thing. I can't do that. It scares me.
Well, when I was there last year in July, the Sasquatch built a peace mandala, a large circular peace mandala made up of rose quartz crystals from Telos, and it was beautiful. And we saw Sasquatch as well. We saw lots of crab flying in and out of Mount Shasta. There was another example too of a friend of mine, Jason from Vancouver, Canada, who he wore glasses for 25 years, and Adama also healed his eyesight too, so he threw his glasses away after the visit. Another lady in September of 2017, she'd been crippled for decades and couldn't walk very well without crutches or a wheelchair, and the Sasquatch late one night surrounded her van where she was camping, and they telepathically contacted her and asked her if she wanted a healing. She said yes. So the next minute, not making this up, a extraterrestrial craft from the Hollow Earth, Telos, came over her van, shot a beam of light like on Star Trek down into the van. She was beamed aboard the craft. They gave her a new set of legs, put her back in the van. Next morning, she's running around the campsite saying, "I'm healed, I'm healed." And I thought that she was on drugs or something, because we didn't know what was going on. And so finally somebody grabbed her and said, "Calm down, what's happened?" And she said, "I'm healed, I'm healed." And I said, "Who healed you? What were you healed of?" And she told us the story of being healed. So that happens. Another lady in September 2016 had fibromyalgia for about 20 years, and they took her into the Telos and gave her a golden bath of healing light, as she described it, and the fibromyalgia now is completely gone. Fibromyalgia, by the way, is caused by chemtrails.
I hope they have their bath situation figured out by the time I get there.
Well,
because that's what I'm instantly going to walk in there and say, "I am of your stocky race.
Okay.
Please to help me."
All right. Okay. All right. but they're here to help us, and they are helping us now.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. They're
Very
helping
good.
us now.
Very good. Well, I really hope to make. I talked to a couple people. Mr. Maestro there is not much of a camper either.
But you can stay in Motel 1 or 2 if you like. So that's fine. There's places to stay around there, you know. Yeah, there's places to stay, and you know, if you want to stay in a real bed, we can arrange that for you. But I like to camp because the camping areas are right next to the entrances to Telos.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can just go up and meditate, and I guarantee you'll have some amazing experiences. The only thing they require, I do a kind of an informal screening of everyone. I asked the Telosians and people of Hollow Earth if they can go. Most of the time they say yes. The only times they say no, if you have to be of a high positive vibration for coming. If you're negative or you take drugs, they don't like you to come. So.
Well, I find that that really is a blocker.
It is.
It's such a blocker if someone is drinking or taking drugs, and food is such a blocker actually too. That have you noticed your diet changing in the last little bit?
Oh yeah, you're not supposed to eat meat at least 3 weeks before the trip.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you do eat meat, be sure to bless it and bless the animal for giving their life so you can sustain yours. There's a energizing technique that I use. I take my hand like this, if you can see it on the camera, like this.
Okay, like a little okay.
Like a okay on my left hand, and then just like this open on my right hand, and you hold it over your food, and it creates a vortex.
Okay, gotcha.
Like this for about 2 minutes, and then what I do is I meditate in contact. If I'm eating, I don't eat meat very often. I would say not never, but sometimes I do, but very rarely. But I will contact the spirit of the animal and thank them, or fish, for example. But just to be safe, it's not a good idea to eat meat 3 weeks before the trip. Just to, eat a vegetarian diet. You'll be fine.
Okay, that sounds good. Can you think of anything else you'd like to bring up?
I want to let everyone know not to give any credence to the negativity you may hear on the media, because we are on a beautiful path right now to a much better and happier planet. And your children and children's children and many future generations will experience a paradise here on this planet that we have tried to obtain but haven't yet achieved it. But it's thanks to your hard work and everyone listening today that I know we will create a much better and happier planet. And we have some really good times ahead of us. Trust your heart mind when you make decisions. Tie into God. You can tie into God easily through your heart mind, not so much your logical mind, but through your heart mind, and you'll always be correct. And thank you so much for letting me share my views today.
Yes, thanks everybody so much for coming. We had a great time with Ted. Everybody have an awesome week, and we will see you next time.
One last thing, my radio show, you can listen at www.outofthisworld1150.com.
Sounds good. Thanks everybody.